Hello and welcome to Nexus Extra. Today we are taking another look at whether Twitter should suspend Donald Trump's account. The presidential hopeful Kamala Harris thinks it should. She thinks he's gone too far with this whole whistleblower scandal. What do our guests think of all this? Let's go and find out. Up there in the top left, we have Brandon Straka. He used to be a Democrat and now he's a Republican and encourages others to walk away. He's gone so far the other way. In fact, he was even allowed to open one of President Trump's rallies. To his right over there, we have one of his mates, Joy Villa, a musician and vocal supporter of Donald Trump, boom, boom. And finally, down at the bottom, he might be trying to get them back onto his side. We have a seasoned media advisor who has worked with the likes of Senators Ted Kennedy and Harry Reid. Thank you all very much for joining us on Nexus Extra. Brandon, I want to start with you. Introduce yourself to our viewers. You are the founder of the Walkaway movement. What's that all about, and how did you come to switch sides?
Sure. So, yes, I am a former liberal and a former Democrat my entire adult life. I pledged total allegiance to the Democrat Party. And I would say in a nutshell, the main reason why is because I bought into the liberal media narrative that is pushed constantly in America, which is that the Republican Party is the party only for heterosexual white people, that if you are a person of color, if you are an LGBT person, if you have a minority status of any kind, you don't have a place beyond being a Democrat. You don't have a place in the center or the political right in America. And for me, the shift came after the election of 2016, in which I voted for Hillary Clinton and was completely traumatized and devastated that Donald Trump had been elected president, because the media that I, as a gay man, had trusted my entire life told me that we had just elected the second coming of Hitler into office in America. And in January of 2017, I was posting on social media constantly trying to understand how it was that the American people could possibly vote for this man. And finally, somebody who had been a lifelong Republican reached out to me with a media clip that showed very clearly one of those key moments in the campaign where they had maligned Donald Trump had been spun out of context. A narrative had been completely created by the liberal media that was completely untrue. And it opened my eyes for the very first time to what the liberal media in America does to anybody that they consider to be their political opponent. This sent me on a long journey of research throughout 2017 that resulted in me leaving the Democratic Party, becoming a Republican, and I'm now a proud Trump supporter.
Brandon, let's look at that incident. So it was when Donald Trump appeared to mimic and mock a disabled reporter, and then Fox News basically said, no, that's what he does when he feels he's caught someone in a lie. Let's have a listen to that.
And we'll get some of these regulators out of the banks so you can borrow and you can help. Because, you know, the banks now, they can't do anything. They're run by the regulators. In all fairness to the banks, they're run by the regulators. When you see the president of the bank, I mentioned the word regulator, these guys come in, they run the banks. And I watched a general recently on television, and they said to him, what do you think about ISIS? Oh, ISIS is very tough. And I'm saying, first of all, why is a general on television? I don't want my generals on television.
I heard Ted's a good debater. I said, he is a good debater, but he can't talk, okay? Bad talker. He's a good debater, bad talker. So he's over here. They asked him about waterboarding. They said, Senator Cruz, what do you think of waterboarding? I don't want to talk about it. You know, he didn't want to talk about waterboarding because too controversial. And I'm saying to myself, they're chopping off heads. He doesn't want to talk about waterboarding.
A couple of good paragraphs. And talking about northern New Jersey draws the prober's eye. Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. I thought, oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction. 14 years ago, they did no retraction.
Brandon, so that was the turning point for you. What did you then go on to do with this walkaway campaign? How did you get that started?
Sure. Well, as I said, I mean, that was just the beginning. That sparked the seed of me doing a lot of research and understanding that the media does this all the time. And they're complicit with the Democrat Party who supports this. It's a circle of dishonesty and manipulation of the American people and manipulation of truth. I didn't want to keep this information to myself when I discovered it. So I began speaking out about it. And I found that a lot of friends who were liberals, a lot of friends who were Democrats were turning their backs on me, stabbing me in the back, maligning me on social media, etc. So I finally kind of said to hell with it. In May of 2018, I created a 6-minute video in which I detailed everything that I found wrong and objectionable about liberalism and the Democrat Party. And I launched something called the Walk Away campaign, encouraging other people to make their testimonials and tell their stories about why they too are walking away from the divisive left.
And how big is your social media presence now as a result of that campaign?
Well, the campaign itself has about over 500,000 patriots in the Walkaway campaign, tens of thousands of whom have created video and written testimonials telling their stories about why they're walking away.
Joy, you're a young black woman. You live in Los Angeles, not a typical Trump supporter, or at least that's what we're told. What's your story?
Well, I was a Democrat. I voted for, Obama. I thought being a liberal was the good side. I'm an artist. I grew up actually with a conservative dad. But I thought that's his beliefs. He likes Fox, but I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to vote liberal. I'm going to vote for all the causes I hold dear. I'm a vegan. I'm an artist. I'm black. I'm also Latina. So growing up in Hollywood as well, even though I held personal conservative values, like I was personally pro-life as I am today, and many of my peers were not, I kept quiet. I said, well, if I say something, I'm going to lose a job. I'm going to be, losing blacklisted and losing things in Hollywood. So I became more and more closeted, less and less educated, and more just going along with things. Even though I was this big, beautiful artist creating all these different things, music, touring 25 countries, till finally Trump came on the scene. And I was about to vote for Bernie. I liked Bernie in the beginning because all my music friends liked Bernie. Everybody wanted free college. I thought, well, I guess he sounds like the outsider. I liked his agreements on trade. I liked that he was sort of a people's person. And when Trump came into the scene, I was actually anti-Trump because I believed all the hype. I thought he was misogynistic. I thought he was racist. I was like, the Apprentice guy, I liked him in New York, but is he presidential material? I knew for sure I would never vote for Hillary. But I thought, Trump, I don't know. Until a girlfriend said, you need to watch some videos. You will like him. You're very like him, actually. And I started getting red pilled. I started going into all the old videos on, on Oprah when he did the 1989 interview where she asked him, would you ever run for president? And he said, only if my country needed me. He talked about not being dependent upon foreign governments, foreign oil, China, being more nationalistic, having pride in the country. He talked about that way back in the 80s. I said, this is the guy, and I'm going to vote for him, and I'm just going to pray that he's going to be pro-America and do the things that we need to do. And I became hardcore red pill, voted for him, eventually had to come out because I was so closeted being a Trump supporter. I only told about 3 people. And I said, you know what, if Madonna can go up there and say, I'm going to blow up the White House in front of millions of people, which she did at the Women's March in January, well, at this newly elected president, they're still hating on him. I'm going to wear a Trump dress at the Grammys.
You mentioned
I did just that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we noticed. Now, you mentioned the expression red pill twice there. We'll have to explain that later. But first of all, you voted for Barack Obama in the previous election. If Obama went up against Donald Trump in 2020, if that were possible, what would you do?
I would vote for Donald Trump again proudly. Because now that I'm educated, I see that Trump is actually caring about all Americans of all different colors and ethnicities. He passed the First Step Act, which was monumental for Black Americans especially. Obama never did anything like that. Trump put in $1 billion toward the Urban Revitalization Act, helping Black families be able to buy homes and live in homes and make neighborhoods better for Black and brown people.
I think it's time we brought in Jim. Jim, you've been a Democrat for many, many years. You've worked with Senators Ted Kennedy and Harry Reid. This is your opportunity to talk to 2 of the flock who have gone away and bring them back in. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I'm not confident I'm good enough to pull that one off based on what I've heard right now. Look, I've got a fundamental disagreement with just about everything I've heard from the other 2 folks. But it is what it is. I mean, if you go back to the very beginning of our country, politics was always very ugly, very divisive. But again, as I've said before, because of my leadership responsibilities with the 2 senators I worked for, I had a chance to deal with 4 presidents, both Republican and Democrat. I've never seen anything like this guy. He is fundamentally corrupt. He is blowing up the world order.
Yeah, Jim.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
we lost him. We lost Jim. Aw, that's a shame.
Blow up.
Well, hey, let's just keep going. This is Nexus Extra. Let's just keep going. You know what? Jim was making some points there that basically he's corrupt, he's racist, he's made some very nasty tweets. Let me put one to you that he would have liked to have done had he been still with us. And that one is essentially to the squad, you know, to Presley, to Ilhan Omar, to Rashida Tlaib, and to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. His message there, his tweet was there. If you don't like America, why don't you go back to the crime-infested countries that you came from? You don't think that's off for a president to say?
Well, he actually said, if you don't like it, why don't you go back to the crime-infested countries you came from, fix it, then show us how you did it.
But most of them came from the United States, not except with the exception of Ilhan Omar.
And they were pretending and saying that this country was horrible, that this country is not good, that they need to destroy and dismantle America. I mean, these are people who are speaking treasonous things, in my opinion, to be elected officials, and you're putting down the very country that's making you great. Whether you were born here or you immigrated here, everybody here has a chance to make this country great. And to put it down as an elected official, well, go someplace else, make
Joy?
it better, and then show us how much better it can be.
You know what was interesting in the main program, which people can watch online, we explained that you were at the Trump social media summit back in the summer, and we explained that he had invited alternative sort of online stars, if you like, to talk about their problems with the big tech companies and perhaps look at solutions. Now, I want to talk about a specific incident which caught my eye in particular. You were in the Rose Garden, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
And you were sitting there with all the alternative social media stars, and on the outside of the roped area, you had all the traditional reporters and journalists, and they probably didn't like that very much. And then there was this incident with Sebastian Gawker, who is one of Trump's media advisors and a journalist. Let's have a listen to this.
You're threatening me now in the White House. In the Rose Garden, you're threatening me. In the Rose Garden.
Go. Get him down.
This is why all of us are here in the White House. This is why he took questions from us, stayed an extra hour. He didn't have to, because we're citizen journalists and we respect you guys, but you got to stop reporting fake news. It's an embarrassment. This is fake news. You guys should be embarrassed of this guy. Thank you.
Back to Joy. Joy, you were really standing up for yourself. What on earth was going on there?
Well, I was standing up for myself. I was standing up for all of America because we are sick of
What
the
was
fake
the incident?
news. We are sick of that. What happened was the press actually had to leave their seats because the president invited all of the social media stars to be able to sit in their chairs. And the press was very angry about that. We were special guests. You know, he invited us into the Rose Garden. He started, giving his speech, and then he left. And Brian Kareem, a Playboy reporter and sometimes CNN reporter, said, "Oh, why don't you take questions? Why don't you take questions? What about questions from the media?" I said, "You know what? He took questions from us. Maybe if you weren't fake news, he would take questions from you as well." And that's when he started calling us demon possessed. And Seb Gawker came over and said, "Excuse me, you call yourself a journalist? You're nothing but a punk." And he said, "Well, why don't we take this outside?" And it just became this shouting match where Brian threatened Seb Gawker. And Gawker had responded because Brian had called me and the people around me demonized, simply because I said, just don't be fake news, be a gentleman.
Do you think someone who works with the president should be squaring up to a journalist and calling him a punk?
Well, when he calls guests like myself a demon, you're demonized, you're hungry for demonic possession, that's all on video, I think he absolutely should. Everybody has a right to defend themselves and the people that are around them.
Well, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Unfortunately, we've still got the frozen screen of Jim Manley there. We're going to go to Brandon for a second.
He should walk away.
Hey, that's not fair. He's not here to defend himself. You will never turn Jim Manley. Brandon, I want to come to you for a moment. Looking forward to the 2020 election, can you give us a few tips about how the strategy, the social media strategy, is going to play out? I mean, for example, like what are you going to be doing from the sidelines to be supporting that campaign?
Well, there's a number, my primary objective is to try to get as many people to wake up and realize what the Democratic Party, the liberal media, and the ideology of liberalism, where they are taking us, how this is toxic and divisive and a complete detriment to the future of America. And I'm going to try to get as many people as I can to walk away. I want to quickly comment on something Jim did manage to get out before he froze. There were two key phrases that he said that I think really need to be paid attention to here. The first one is he said of Donald Trump, we've never seen anything like this guy before. Absolutely, we haven't. America, thank God, elected this president. The next thing that he said is he is blowing up the world order. Truer words have never been said, and he really let the mask drop there when he said that. This is a president who puts America first, who cares about the sovereignty of an American nation and the American people. He is absolutely blowing up the world order that the globalist presidents before, who did not care about the American people, were putting into structure.
And now he's the subject of an impeachment inquiry, Brandon.
Well, why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose that is? Because the politics as usual, the usual politicians that have been in the office are terrified of this guy for that very reason. He is blowing up the world order. He is shaking up the system, and he is putting the American people first. And these politicians don't care about the American people. They care about globalist principles, and they care about power, and they care about control. This is a president who puts the American people first.
Well, let's just see. Let's just see if in 2020 the American people put him first. Brandon Straka, Joy Villa. Thank you so much, Jim Manley. Thank you. Really appreciate you still being there, kind of. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And thank you for watching Nexus Extra. Really appreciate it. If you want to watch this or any of our other episodes, it's all on YouTube. Thank you. Bye-bye.